The emerald expanse of the Willow Creek Golf Course used to be my sanctuary. Every morning, as the sun kissed the dew-covered greens, I'd be out there, the rhythmic thwack of my driver echoing through the crisp morning air. It wasn't just a game. It was a ritual, a communion with nature, a challenge against myself. Each perfectly manicured fairway was a canvas, each hole a carefully considered puzzle. The gentle undulations of the landscape, the strategically placed bunkers, the shimmering water. Hazards all contributed to a symphony of sporting perfection. I wasn't just a casual player. I was obsessed. My handicap was a single digit, and I knew every blade of grass on that course. I lived for the thrill of a well-executed drive. The satisfaction of a perfectly judged putt. It was more than a hobby. It was a passion that consumed me, a refuge from the mundane realities of life. Willow Creek wasn't just a golf course. It was my golf course. Or at least it used to be. Before the HOA decided to improve it. Then came the email. Subject: Willow Creek HOA, exciting new initiative. Excitement, in this context, was a thinly veiled euphemism for impending doom. The HOA, a cabal of busybodies and penny pinchers led by the iron-fisted Gladys Kravitz. Yes, I'm using a pseudonym, but it's remarkably accurate, announced their grand plan. 150 shimmering, space-age solar panels, strategically placed across my hallowed greens. The justification: sustainability and cost savings. They painted a picture of a greener future, powered by the sun, where membership fees would magically plummet. What they failed to mention was the aesthetic devastation they were about to unleash on my pristine course. Once a haven of natural beauty, was about to become a solar farm. It felt like a hostile takeover, a personal affront. This wasn't progress. It was vandalism disguised as environmentalism. My sanctuary was under attack, and Gladys Kravitz was leading the charge. The initial reaction was, predictably, disbelief. Surely, this was a joke, a poorly conceived prank. But the follow-up email, detailing the installation schedule and panel specifications, confirmed our worst fears. Disbelief quickly morphed into incandescent rage. Meetings were called, petitions were circulated, and strongly worded letters were drafted, all to no avail. Gladys and her cronies stood firm, citing environmental responsibility and projected cost reductions with unwavering conviction. The panels themselves were an abomination. Imagine, if you will, a shimmering sea of metallic rectangles, glinting obnoxiously in the sun, disrupting the natural flow of the landscape. They were scattered haphazardly across the fairways, like fallen spaceships, turning once pristine greens into an industrial wasteland. The gentle curves of the course were now punctuated by sharp, angular monstrosities. Every swing, every putt, was now framed by the cold, unfeeling presence of those damned solar panels. The beauty was gone, replaced by a sterile, utilitarian eyesore. It was during one particularly frustrating practice session, amidst the solar panel blight, that the accident occurred. I was attempting a delicate fade shot, trying to navigate around one of those metallic monstrosities on the 7th fairway. I swung, perhaps with a touch more venom than usual, and whack! The ball veered sharply off course, striking a solar panel with a satisfying, almost musical, thud. Now, I'm a seasoned golfer. I know my way around a club. I can usually control my shots with pinpoint accuracy. But, sometimes things just happen. The wind caught it, maybe. A rogue squirrel distracted me. Whatever the reason, the ball found its mark. And as I stood there, staring at the slightly dusty surface of the panel, a wicked little thought began to form. It was just an accident, of course. But perhaps it could be more. Perhaps these panels could serve a purpose after all. A target purpose. And so, the practice began. It wasn't easy, of course. These weren't stationary targets. They were awkwardly placed, and the wind was a constant variable. I had to adjust my stance, my swing, even my mental approach. A slight draw here, a touch more power there. It became a fascinating challenge, a strangely addictive puzzle. I started small, aiming for the panels closest to the tee box. Then, as my confidence grew, I began to target the more distant ones, the ones strategically positioned behind water hazards or nestled amongst the bunkers. It required precision, control, and a healthy dose of calculated recklessness. I analyzed the trajectory of the ball, the wind speed, the angle of the sun. Each shot was a carefully calculated equation, a blend of skill and strategy. It was, ironically, the most engaging golf I'd played in years. The solar panels, in their own twisted way, had reignited my passion for the game. Of course, I wasn't a vandal. Not really. I was a protester. A golfer taking a stand against tyranny. That's how I saw it. Anyway, the HOA had taken something precious from me, from all of us. That they desecrated our sanctuary in the name of progress, and they hadn't even bothered to ask for our opinion. This wasn't just about golf. It was about principle. Each perfectly aimed shot was a tiny act of rebellion. Metaphorical middle finger to Gladys Kravitz and her solar panel obsession. And besides, I reasoned, I was actually improving my game. The panels were forcing me to be more precise, more strategic, more creative. I was reclaiming my enjoyment of the course, one dented solar panel at a time. It was a victimless crime. Really. The sun would still shine, the electricity would still flow, and I would have the satisfaction of knowing that I was fighting the good fight, even if it was with a golf club. And as time went on, I got good. Really good. What started as a clumsy attempt at rebellion evolved into a refined skill, a testament to my dedication, and perhaps my slightly warped sense of justice. The thrill of each successful hit intensified. The satisfying ping of the ball connecting with the solar panel became a symphony of defiance, a personal victory against the forces of conformity. It became a game. A daily quest for precision and accuracy. I tracked my progress, noting the distance, the wind conditions, the type of shot required. I even started giving myself points for difficulty. Hitting a panel over a water hazard, 5 points. Between two bunkers, 8 points. Directly in the center, 10 points, and bragging rights for the rest of the day. The adrenaline rush was undeniable. The quiet satisfaction of outsmarting the HOA one golf ball at a time was intoxicating. I was no longer just practicing. I was competing. And I was winning. Of course, the higher the stakes, the greater the risk, and my little game was fraught with peril. There were close calls, near misses that sent my heart racing, like the time Mrs. Henderson, the notoriously gossipy widow from number 14, strolled by just as I was lining up a shot at a particularly distant panel. I quickly adjusted my aim, pretending to admire the scenery, my heart pounding in my chest. Or the time I nearly took out Mr. Peterson's golf cart with a wayward shot that he's practically blind as a bat and wouldn't have seen it coming. I blamed it on the sun, of course, claiming the glare had affected my vision. Then there was the ultimate near miss. Gladys Kravitz herself inspecting the panels with a clipboard in hand, just as I was preparing to unleash my signature power drive. I feigned a coughing fit, dropped my club, and mumbled something about allergies. Each close encounter was a jolt of adrenaline, a reminder that my game could be exposed at any moment. Then came the day I finally went too far. I'd been aiming for a particularly audacious shot, a long drive over the lake, targeting a panel perched precariously on a small island. I swung with all my might, and crack! The satisfying sound was accompanied by a visible spiderweb fracture across the panel's surface. It wasn't just a dusty smudge anymore. It was genuine damage. A wave of conflicting emotions washed over me. Excitement, of course, at achieving such a precise and powerful shot. But also, a heavy dose of guilt and a paralyzing fear of the consequences. I quickly surveyed the area, ensuring no one had witnessed my act of vandalism. Then, I approached the damaged panel, my heart pounding in my chest. The fracture was undeniable, a stark white scar against the dark surface. I tried to rub it away, to somehow minimize the damage, but it was no use. It was there, a testament to my increasingly reckless behavior. Panicked, I grabbed some loose dirt and attempted to camouflage the crack, hoping to delay the inevitable discovery. It was a pathetic attempt, I knew, but I had to do something. The inevitable happened. The HOA discovered the damage. And, as expected, Gladys Kravitz was not pleased. An official investigation was launched, complete with yellow caution tape and stern-faced HOA members meticulously examining the crime scene. The pressure was on. Their investigative techniques were, shall we say, less than sophisticated. They questioned golfers, inspected golf balls for suspicious markings, and even attempted to analyze the trajectory of the presumed projectile, a golf ball. It was almost comical, watching them fumble around, completely clueless. But beneath the amusement, a knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. I had to play it cool. I offered my full cooperation, expressing my outrage at the senseless act of vandalism. I even suggested possible culprits, disgruntled former members, rogue teenagers, even squirrels with a vendetta against solar energy. I made sure to appear concerned, helpful, and utterly innocent. It was the performance of a lifetime, and my freedom depended on it. The investigation, while inept, did manage to stir up the rumor mill. Whispers and accusations circulated through the clubhouse like a bad case of the flu. Fingers were pointed, suspicions were cast, and alliances were tested. Some blamed the teenagers who occasionally snuck onto the course after dark. Others suspected a rival golf club trying to sabotage Willow Creek. A few even dared to suggest it was an inside job, a disgruntled resident taking revenge on the HOA. The paranoia was overwhelming. Every sideways glance felt like an accusation. Every casual conversation seemed laced with hidden meaning. I found myself avoiding eye contact, second-guessing my every word, and constantly scanning the faces of my fellow golfers for signs of suspicion. Even Mrs. Henderson, with her seemingly endless supply of gossip, seemed to be watching me with a knowing glint in her eye. The pressure was mounting, and I knew it was only a matter of time before my secret was exposed. The walls were closing in. Then came the invitation. A friendly round of golf with none other than Gladys Kravitz herself. It was a summons disguised as a social engagement, a thinly veiled attempt to assess my character and, perhaps, catch me in a lie. The power dynamic was palpable. She, the enforcer of HOA rules, and I, the prime suspect in a solar panel sabotage case. The round was excruciating. Every swing, every putt, was scrutinized. She peppered me with seemingly innocuous questions about my golf game, my opinions on the solar panels, and my general satisfaction with the community. I responded with carefully crafted answers, maintaining my facade of innocence and cooperation. But beneath the surface, a silent battle raged. I subtly defied her at every turn, making sarcastic comments about the panels, accidentally hitting my ball close to them, and generally making her life as miserable as possible without raising suspicion. It was a delicate dance. A game of cat and mouse played out on the very course I was accused of defacing. The charade couldn't last forever. One fateful afternoon, while attempting a particularly challenging shot over a cluster of bunkers, I heard a gasp. I turned to see not only Gladys Kravitz, but two other HOA members, standing behind me, their faces a mixture of shock and outrage. I was caught red-handed. I can explain? I stammered, desperately trying to salvage the situation. I tried to claim it was another accident, a freak occurrence, but the look on Gladys's face told me she wasn't buying it. The other HOA members chimed in, accusing me of vandalism, disrespect, and a complete disregard for community property. Cornered and defeated, I finally confessed. I admitted to intentionally targeting the solar panels, explaining my frustration with the HOA's decision and my belief that they had ruined the golf course. My confession was met with stunned silence, followed by a torrent of anger and condemnation. The game was over. The fallout was swift and severe. A hefty fine arrived in the mail, demanding restitution for the damaged panel and threatening further legal action if I didn't comply. The HOA revoked my golf course privileges, effectively banishing me from my beloved sanctuary. The community, predictably, was divided. Some condemned my actions as vandalism and a betrayal of trust. Others, however, secretly applauded my defiance, viewing me as a folk hero standing up to the oppressive HOA. The whispers and stares followed me everywhere. I became a pariah, an outcast in my own community. Even my closest friends seemed hesitant to associate with me, fearing the repercussions from Gladys and her cronies. The threat of legal action loomed large, casting a shadow over my life. It seemed my impulsive act of rebellion had backfired spectacularly, leaving me isolated, ostracized, and facing financial ruin. My sanctuary had become my prison. However, amidst the condemnation and isolation, a flicker of hope emerged. Secretly, some residents admired my actions. They saw me as a symbol of resistance, a lone warrior fighting against the overbearing authority of the HOA. Anonymous notes of support appeared on my doorstep, praising my courage and expressing solidarity. One evening, Mr. Peterson, the same near-blind golfer whose cart I almost hit, slipped me a wink and a firm handshake. "You showed him," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Someone had to do it." Other residents offered subtle gestures of support, a knowing nod, a sympathetic smile, a quiet word of encouragement. These small acts of kindness gave me strength and reminded me that I wasn't entirely alone. While they couldn't openly condone my actions, they understood my frustration and appreciated my willingness to stand up to the HOA, even if it meant facing the consequences. This unexpected support gave me the courage to keep fighting, to find a way to resolve the situation and reclaim my place in the community. Emboldened by the clandestine support and facing mounting legal fees, I decided to reach out to the HOA, suggesting a compromise. To my surprise, they were willing to listen. Perhaps the negative publicity and the growing dissent within the community had softened their stance. Or maybe Gladys Kravitz was simply tired of dealing with me. After several tense meetings, we reached an agreement. I would pay for the damaged panel, and in exchange, the HOA would redesign the layout of the remaining panels, clustering them in less intrusive areas of the course. We even discussed the possibility of creating a dedicated driving range area with reinforced panels, where residents could practice their swing without fear of causing further damage. It was a surprising and unexpected outcome, a victory for both sides. The HOA got their sustainable energy, and the golfers got their course back, albeit in a slightly modified form. The Willow Creek Golf Course was forever changed. The clustered solar panels, while still present, were less obtrusive, no longer dominating the landscape. The dedicated driving range, complete with reinforced panels, became a popular spot for residents to hone their skills and perhaps indulge in a bit of harmless rebellion. The community, too, was different. The conflict had forced us to confront our differences, to listen to each other, and to find common ground. We learned the importance of communication, compromise, and respecting differing opinions, even when we vehemently disagreed. The HOA, humbled by the experience, became more transparent and responsive to the needs of the residents, and I, the reformed vandal, was cautiously welcomed back into the fold, albeit with a slightly tarnished reputation. The scars of the conflict remained, but they served as a reminder of the importance of standing up for what we believe in, even when it means facing the consequences. Over time, the initial animosity faded, replaced by a grudging respect. I had become a symbol, a reminder that even the most powerful authority could be challenged. While I was no longer the villain of the story, I wasn't exactly a hero either. I was something in between. A flawed individual who made a mistake but ultimately fought for what they believed in. The younger residents, especially, seemed to view me with a certain admiration. They saw my actions as a form of anti-establishment rebellion, a rejection of the status quo. Some even jokingly referred to me as the Solar Panel Avenger, a title I found both amusing and slightly embarrassing. I became the go-to person for residents with grievances against the HOA, a sounding board for their frustrations and a source of, perhaps ill-advised, advice. My reputation had been tarnished, but it had also been transformed. That I was no longer just a disgruntled golfer. I was a voice for the voiceless, a champion of the underdog. Looking back, the whole situation seems utterly absurd. The image of a disgruntled golfer, obsessively targeting solar panels with golf balls, is inherently comical. The irony of using a symbol of environmental responsibility as a target for destruction is almost too rich to ignore. It's a testament to the human capacity for both pettiness and passion, for finding humor in the face of adversity. That I took a situation I hated, something that was actively ruining my enjoyment of life, and turned it into a bizarre game that I fought back against what I perceived as an injustice, using the only weapon I had at my disposal: my golf club. The fact that it escalated into a full-blown community conflict, complete with investigations, accusations, and legal threats, is almost beyond belief. It's a reminder that even the most mundane suburban settings can be fertile ground for absurdity, and that sometimes, the best way to deal with a frustrating situation is to simply laugh at it. And maybe, just maybe, take a few well-aimed shots. So, I find myself back on the Willow Creek Golf Course, club in hand. The sun is setting, casting long shadows across the slightly altered landscape. I take a deep breath, savoring the familiar scent of freshly cut grass. The solar panels, clustered in the distance, are a reminder of the conflict, the compromise, and the lessons learned. I address the ball, focusing on my stance, my grip, my swing. This time, I'm not aiming for a solar panel. I'm simply playing the game, appreciating the beauty of the course, the challenge of the sport, and the camaraderie of the community. I swing, and the ball soars through the air, a perfect arc against the twilight sky. It's a symbol of renewed appreciation, of forgiveness, and of the enduring power of the human spirit. It's a reminder that even in the face of adversity, we can find common ground. We can learn from our mistakes, and we can always find a way to reclaim our passions. And sometimes, standing up for what you believe in is worth a few broken solar panels along the way. *Thwack star.